Hey everyone, Kevin here with Divinely Designed, and I have a paper crafting video. If you've been following my videos, you know I've been applying for the Heartfelt Creations design team. Well, they sent us some new products and we had to make some projects which we then send in to be evaluated. So I won't be releasing this video until those new products are available, and it happens to be called the Classic Petunia collection. I created 3 different projects, so I thought in this video I would go over the products in this new release and then talk a little bit about the projects I made. So let's start off with the paper in this collection. They always do a really beautiful job with papers. They have a combination of some papers that have images on them that are really, you could use right away to put as a scrapbook layout or a photo layout. And then they have some other ones that are just pattern papers that you could use for lots of other kinds of projects. So just going through the paper collection really quickly, it has a lot of colors in bright pinks and greens, soft purples. There's a couple of darker greens and some sort of bright pinks in it. Very spring-like, very beautiful. Lots of really good images in it, featuring the petunia flower. Lots of, if you're familiar with their papers, they have lots of different sizes that could be used directly on cards, and little sentiments you can cut directly out of the paper and use for really quick cards and things like that. So really nice paper collection, and I used a lot of it in the projects, obviously. The first, and the products also, or this release, contain some stamps and dies. So there's a small flower, a tiny flower, a medium flower, and a large flower, all with coordinating dies. As well, on that right-hand side, you sort of see kind of a vine-like one. Their third stamp and die set is more floral images, like a hanging basket, a corner flower stamp. So all very cool. My first project uses their 6x6 fold-out cards, and I use that bottom one that has sort of like a box, so it's like a little diorama. And I focused really on the paper in this project here. So I did a lot of fussy cutting and then layered it, add a lot of sparkle. I did my flowers kind of in a bright pink and green. That product is called Diamond Dust, and I used it in the background to add some sparkle. My second project was a 12x12 photo layout. I colored the flowers here with like a stripe in the middle. I really love how they looked. But otherwise, it's a fairly simple project. My third project was my big project, and this one is a flower basket, a 3D hanging flower basket that has a ton of flowers on it. And so this took me a long time. There's a ton of flowers on it. But I also created an SVG cut file to go along with it. So I thought I'd go over this product. On the left-hand side, you see the sides, and what you do is you glue those together, 8 of them, to create the sides of the hanging basket. And then another cut file just to create the pattern paper that gets glued on top so it's pretty. There's a brass ring that you tie all the strings to create the basket itself, and then basically you're just adding the flowers on top of it in kind of a very softly rounded shape. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about how I make the flowers. I like to emboss and then color. So I've embossed here. For these flowers, I used a variety of inks, some from Altenew, some archival, and then some color box pigment inks. For the leaves, I used some Catherine Pooler design inks in shades of green. I used some finger daubers and really simply just sort of did the dark in the center and the lighter shades toward the edges. And the same kind of with the flowers, just did a dark center and then lighter as it goes out to the edges. And that really just helps to blend it all by itself. This example is the pigment inks, the color box pigment inks. The other way I like to color them is using Svg markers, and that's how I colored the purple ones. So same way, I like a light, a medium, and a dark color, and I actually sort of mess up on this first leaf here, so I start again. I chose the dark color instead of the medium one there, so you'll see me start over. But I add the lightest first, and I'm leaving a white stripe in the middle, then the medium, slightly smaller, and then the dark really at the edges. And then I use the lightest one to go from the darkest to the lightest and sort of drag that dark into the light to create some really nice shading. This made a really beautiful flower, so I was really happy with how it came out. Now to shape the flowers, I'm slowing this down just a little bit here so you can kind of get a sense of it. I'm using the ball stylus. This is the 8mm ball stylus. The leaves are really easy to shape. I'm just really going around the edges and then a little in the middle to make sort of a cup shape, doing that on all 3 of the leaves, and then turning it over and pressing in the middle to sort of pop those individual leaves up. So really simple, not hard at all. The flower itself, basically going to do a very similar kind of motion and just use my stylus along the edges of the flower to create kind of a cup shape on each of the petals. I really want the edges to sort of curl here, as well as the top, and I'm going to do that to all of them. And then we're going to actually turn this over and press in the middle of the flower to create, that shape that we're going to for sort of that petunia shape. Now, I found that when you just press in the middle, and it doesn't create quite the right shape, I'm using that extra thick foam pad here, and I'm actually pressing at the base of each leaf to make that center section a little bit bigger, and then giving a really strong press in the middle to try and make that cup shape. Now, I still found that the cup shape wasn't really strong here. To make it look more like a petunia, I did a couple of things. One was to round the edges or the very tops of the petals themselves to give them a little bit of a curl. And then I'm actually going to use some hot glue to glue the sides of 2 adjacent leaves together so that I end up with a more trumpet-like shape to my petunia, which I think really gives it that, that very kind of realistic look to the flower. Now, I will tell you, this is a little bit tedious, but it's not difficult, certainly. All you're doing is taking a little bead of hot glue and kind of running it along the edge, letting it cool for a second or two, and then just sort of pressing it together. And you're going to do that for all of the petals next to each other. And that will then give you a flower that has a very pronounced trumpet shape to it. Again, sort of molding the tops, again, adding a little bit more of a curl to them. And I think that gives you a very realistic looking petunia shape. Now, you could add they have some stamens that are actually part of the die kit here as well, so you could add those. I didn't do that on this particular one, but I did add them on my purple project. I do like to add a little bit of sparkle to my Heartfelt creation, so here I'm using some Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. I just think they look great when they have a little bit of shine. And for most of my flowers, I glued them to the leaves themselves, and then just added them to my basket project. So I have some still photos of my projects that I did. This is the 6x6 card. Again, I focused really a lot more on the paper here. Did a lot of fussy cutting. I added some glitter to my flowers, actually, to give a little bit of sparkle. And you can see in that background, that very back piece there is some sparkle, and that's a product called Diamond Dust. This is my 12x12 layout. Again, sort of a very basic kind of photo layout. Photo in the middle. I did some matting with the pattern paper. I used a little bit of Distress ink and Wilted Violet, and then colored those with Zig markers and left that white stripe in the middle, which I think looks really great. This is my big project, this hanging flower basket, this 3D project. I really love how it came out. I used a bunch of different inks to give me some different kind of shades of pink here. I added that one die cut along the pieces of twine that hold up the basket, and I think that looks really great. And then just a close-up of the flowers here. So thanks very much for watching, everyone. Bye now.